Welcome to the Tribe of Testimonies. Here you will find conversations with faithful Native American members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sharing their stories and their love of the Savior. My name's Andrea Hales. I'm Navajo, and I'm glad that you've decided to come and join us today. My guest today is Brother Norman Brown. I don't know how, but somehow, apparently missed him. Emailed me or sent me Facebook Messenger stuff, and I missed it. So if I have done that to anybody else, I apologize, and please reach out to me again, because I really promise I'm not trying to miss you. If you want to participate and share your testimony, please let me not forget you. But Brother Brown has a lot of really cool stuff. He's been around the world a lot. So, he'll explain that. And he just is so grateful for the gospel. It just oozes from him, and I love that about him. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with him, because I certainly did. I am on the phone tonight with Brother Norman Brown, and I'm really happy that we could get together, because things didn't work out somehow before this, but this is the right time apparently, so I'm really glad. Brother Brown, would you please introduce yourself in your tribal way as much as possible? If it's in your language, great. If it's not, that's fine. Not everybody speaks their language, and some languages are dead.
Okay. Mine Norman Brown in Shia. Ishida di Zode Nasha, the Sans Pasoliede. There's a son in Shlov, killed a cheat, and unable to chin. Kia, Todich in edition, the shade that, to hit lean a the shinali that. And I just said, my name is Norman Brown. I'm from the Four Corners area, in a town called Tisnosbus. And I'm from my clan is Mini Goats, and I'm born of the Folded Arms, and the Bitterwater clan or my Shinali that, and then the water that flows together are people who were there's another but the Shache out there, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Brother Brown, would you share something that you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel of Jesus Christ? It can be pretty much anything: a story, a celebration, way of life, a ceremony. What do you love of your heritage as it relates to the gospel?
Well, when I was growing up, my mom used to weave, and I used to watch her, and she used to make all these patterns, and when she wove, and she has these patterns that she would do, and without this pattern, the gospel teaches about patterns in our life too, and even the Lord's even said that, in the scriptures said that the Lord has revealed a pattern for the temples and such, and also not only in the ancient times, but also when the temple was being built in Salt Lake. And with this pattern, in every conference, the brethren always teach us that there is a pattern in some sort, in some fashion or form, what we need to do. A pattern of how to increase our knowledge, or whatever, to renew our covenants and such. A pattern for everything, and I'm kind of my interest lies in the aviation community, in the naval. And every time we go to a carrier, we have to go into a pattern. And then I think Brother Uchtdorf, he's an aviation nut himself too. He always has something in his talk is always something related to aviation. I love his talks on those, and and anyway, that's another subject. But anyway, with those patterns, and then there are patterns that we need to do that in order to keep us um, uh, uh, straight and narrow. A pattern, the way to do baptism, a pattern, the way to do the sacrament and giving blessings. And and I remember uh, when I was in while I was in the Navy, I was I started out as a working on airplane engines, on helicopters, and I decided to become an air crewman. And so basically, I'll go wherever the aircraft goes, providing the pilot doing the piloting and the steering and such. And I was a crew chief and a load master, and then there was a pattern the way we do things, the way we load up the aircraft, and we were how we load this aircraft. There's only like 12 inches of center of gravity. If you pick up an airplane by it, by in the middle, you have to keep it balanced. Hence, the center of gravity (CG) is what we call it. So the airplane isn't flying through the air nose up or nose down. You're supposed to keep it, straight through, flying straight through the air. And my job is to figure it out, call the CG and the moments and everything else. And there's a pattern of doing that, and that they're again a pattern. And then another job I took on was called being a flight engineer. And let me tell you, Ms. Andrea, that was the love of my job. And and I've heard people say, um, you hear people say, "I love my job." All through my life, I kept hearing that throughout my life. Oh, I love my job, and I just didn't register or anything like that at all. It just you know, it came like the wind came and went, and didn't register until I was qualified as a flight engineer. And no, anyway, in the Navy, flight engineers, they love eating their young. They're in form of hazing, if you will. And I went through uh, that whole scenario of the the reason why they were hard on you, because they want you to handle the stressful situations. If you go to boot camp, the drill instructor is just yelling and screaming in your face, and you're trying to perform, and just to see how they want you to handle pressure. And I finally realized that, and in the training, the first part of my training, I mean, I cried every night trying to see, because I wanted to be a flight engineer so bad. And I says, Lord, so I'm not very good with numbers. Math is just a huge stumbling block, and for natives it's that way. And but you give them a pencil and some sort, or charcoal, or you can make that charcoal sing, anyway, or given a paintbrush. Oh my goodness, you can, you know, just really paint away. And anyway, I wanted to be a flight engineer so bad, and so thank heavens the instructors were on my side, just the desire to learn, and I guess that's what they liked about any student that comes along, the desire to learn, that they help them along. So they got nurtured me on that, and so I, made it through. And then, but when I got to my parent command, they were just equally as harsh. I mean, um, and I didn't realize later that the reason why they're doing this, because to see if I can handle pressure. All of a sudden you might be flying along, you lose cabin pressure. What are you going to do? Oh, the engine fire just got on fire. Number 4. What are you going to do? Is it on fire? How's the fire reacting? What are you going to do? That type of thing. Or anytime I put my finger on a switch, it says, hey, where's that power coming from? What's it doing? Is it energized or de-energized? Which side is it coming on? What's circuit breaker buses that come from? There's like 8 circuit breaker buses, and you have to point out which one it is. And anyways, it was just a real um, it was a difficult moment, but I persevered, and when that was all over, and this particular day, I was this aircraft it's called an LC-130. It's got skis on it. It looks like pontoons, but people always ask, "Hey, do you guys land on the water?" We sat at humor. Yeah, we do it all the time. I said, no. But anyway, but we land in snow, and it's got the wheels and then the snow skis underneath, and then you can select either one of them. And so when so I was flying from McMurdo Station. We deployed from Point Magoo from California, and then I island hop all the way over in Hawaii, Ponga Ponga, and then Christchurch, New Zealand. That's what the hub of it. Then we get our cold weather gear, if you will, and then we would get down to McMurdo Station, Antarctic continent. Anyway, when this is all, this particular day I was qualified, and they said, they blessed me with, Omni, and okay, you can fly by yourself now. Before that, they'd be yelling and screaming, and what's this doing? What's that doing? How much fuel have you got? If you lose 3 engines, how much fuel have you got? You have to keep that information all the time. Anyway, when that was all said and done, when the dust settled, I was flying. I was in I had the two pilots in front of me, the pilot and the co-pilot, and then I was in the middle, and then off to my right hand, over my right shoulders, almost towards to the back of the side, the navigator sits back there, and I'm in the middle, and I have the best seat in the house. It's kind of like a greenhouse, and I have all these circuit breakers, and my responsibility was the engines. Anyway, so I just keeping the track of how much fuel we're burning and all that. And anyway, this particular day, when it was all said and done, I was flying. The sky was blue, not a cloud in the sky, and the engines were humming, and it's almost it was humming the "Come, Come, You Saints," and then it just dawned on me, it clicked on me, and I love my job, and I could say that with deep conviction, and with no with a deep conviction, and like a testimony, like it's true. And I remember that feeling. As a little tear broke out because I know I made it. And then anyway, that's one moment I cherish the most, and of my accomplishments in the naval aviation community. And as far as I grew up herding sheep when I was younger, and I always wanted to remember the first time I seen it was in my father's '63 Chevy. The patching as a Navajo riding inside of Apache. Anyway, I was looking out, the windshield was kind of like a wraparound a little bit in the front, and then I remember looking over and I see this looked like a mosquito flying. It was just a little Cessna flying, and he goes, "Oh man, I wonder what that is up there," Didn't give it a thought until I started herding sheep, and I started seeing these contrails over the res, or I'd hear the engine or something like that, and then occasionally once or twice they hear military jets fly low over, and then pilots would kind of dip their wing and wave their hands up from the cockpit, and then they used to just thrill me when I see that. And my brothers, my other siblings, said the same things. Yeah, those guys fly around. They always dip their wings at us, saying hello. And anyway, and I always thought about that, and then the remembrance is one day I'm going to be up there, but it took some time before I got up there, but I eventually made it up there. And then in the naval services, when you do your 4 years hitch, and then when you re-enlist, you can do anything you want. My first time was when I re-enlisted was on my ship on the USS Tarawa. It's what we call an L-class ship. Basically, we were a taxi service for the Marines. They don't want to go, and we just pick them up and drop them off, and they do the little game on shore, and they come back. And anyway, I re-enlisted on the ship there, and an officer's supposed to do that. But the last times I re-enlisted over Shiprock.
Wow.
I requested to fly over to Shiprock to re-enlist, and the commanding officer said, "You want to go what?" Because I want to re-enlist over Shiprock. He says, "All right, we can do that. We have the airplane, we got the resources." And so we flew a C-130 flying over there, and then flew in a circle over there. And then
That's
and says,
awesome.
and I asked him, and he says, "Hey, where do you live?" I live in TC. I showed him all the coordinates, and then we flew up there. and I called my mom. My mom is alive. She was alive at the time. Says, "Mom, if you hear 4 engine flare plane and I'm flying, I'm gonna rock my wings, and that's me inside." He goes, "No way!" And says, "Yeah." She said, "Okay." And then if you hear engine flying, airplane flying, that's me inside. So we went down, up and down the valley of Tisans Bus, and just zoom up in there. We were kind of like a racetrack in there. And then the last one, I rocked the wings and we flew off. And then the last time one re-listed was in the C2. That's the aircraft, a twin engine aircraft that landed and take off of aircraft carriers. So basically, what Top Gun do, people do, we did the same thing. But the only thing is that we had turboprop engines, and that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that. That last time it was right over Four Corners, and the pilot re-enlisted me. His call sign was his call sign was Hot Rod. He's the one that re-enlisted, and he's oh man, he was a lot of fun. And I says, "Hey," he was telling me, he says, "Hey, so give us a little tour here." And I told him I want to go my Monument Valley. That's where my mom was raised in Narrow Canyon. We flew over there. So, yeah, that's where my mom is, and that's the Hogan that she used to live on her cheap all over. I said, "Oh yeah, that's cool." We raced around in that area, and then we went all over Monument Valley between the buttes and everything around. It was just totally awesome. And then we went towards to the west, towards a little ways from Dinahozo and Red Mesa, and then again over Tislaspas. And that time, my mom was gone by that time, so I just told my siblings, "Says, hey, this is what's going to be happening." So um, they're all they're all down there waiting, and then they saw this twin-engine aircraft buzzing around in that valley again. and told me, I'm gonna rock our wings and let you know that I'm in there. I said, "Okay," so we did that, and then we flew over to Four Corners Monument. That's where I re-enlisted my last time. And then we went to Farmington Regional Airport, and we landed there, and when that's where I met my siblings and nephews over there. Anyway, they thought it was pretty cool to bring this aircraft over there,
Yeah, it is.
and so, and then my sisters brought some fried bread and everything, passed it down. Man, those guys were like in heaven, man. Anyway, the pilots really liked it, and they says, "Hey, man, we got to do it again." So, anyway, so we couldn't take on fuel there at Farmington because the aircraft runway weight was the aircraft weighed more than the runway, so we didn't fuel it there because it's extra weight. So we took off and went over to Kirtland Air Force Base and refueled there, and then went back to San Diego. That was a trip. A trip that they will never forget. I mean, this aircraft, the rear ramp can drop down open, but you have to be tied in. And these guys are back there taking pictures and stuff like that. And I saw the picture that he took. I knew that crew chief that was on that flight, and that photo was up in one of the stores and on our base. And all that. Says, I know where that is. So anyway, that was a lot of fun. And again, the pattern. When I was a flight engineer, there's just so many procedures. I had to develop a pattern in order to do my job, and all the way from it entail of touching, seeing, hearing, and feeling. For an example, just to start number one engine on the C-130, you have to push the button. You have to see the button, and then use the corner of your peripheral vision to look over your shoulder and to see a bleed air gauge. See if it drops, that means the air is going to the air turbine, and then a lot of lights and needle starts to move. The oil pressure and the hydraulic, and so on until the engine catches the turbine, and that temperature rises, and you see all that. That's what I had to learn, and I just loved doing that. And I really had a great time, but sadly the squadron went away, and I had to go back to flying C2s again. But still, I was flying. I just if they gave me, say, hey Norm, who wants you to come back and fly? And I says, where do I sign? I'll do it again in a heartbeat. Basically, what I'm saying. So
S-
anyway, yeah.
So, how many other members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints did you associate with in the Naval Air Force? And also tell us about some of the other natives that you met too.
Oh, you would have to ask that. Talk about meeting natives in the most odd places. And the first time was on the first ship I was on. This guy looked like a native. This man, you just develop a sense of, when you see this, and it was a darkened ship too. When they at night the ship goes dark and ship with all the red lights or amber lights. And I know this guy, man, he looked like a native. And I said, "Excuse me, where are you from?" And he goes Arizona, just the way he said it. And then you develop an ear for Navajo. And when it happens, I switch to Navajo mode. That mean I just said, "Mkharillananna." And he just looked at me, holy smokes. And he goes, I'm from Red Mesa. He goes, oh, really? My brothers went to Red Mesa. Man, we had a little mini reunion there. And turns out they knew my brothers there when he went to school. But I went to school and I was on placement program. So, but the rest of the other siblings, they went to Red Mesa High. And so they knew all my brothers. So that's the one on the ship. And the other odd place I met a native right on Antarctic and there in McMurdo Station. This is the days where in the beginning stage of emails, you go to the terminal and email, and that's why I used to tell my sweetheart, says, "Honey, did I ever tell you I love my job?" I said, yeah, you told me 1,000 times. And I looked over my right shoulder, and guess who is a native gal sitting there? Because man, that's got to be native. So I went over there. Excuse me, where are you from? And she says, Gallup, New Mexico. No, she said Gallup. And you mean not in Georgia there? He goes, no way, And anyway, we had another happy reunion there. She was on a vessel every year. Uh, there's a ship that comes down called Green Wave that comes from um, Point Point Wainimi. That's just north of Point Magoo here in California. And the ship would sail all the way down to McMurdo Station where they would drop supplies off. That happens only once because that's when it's the coldest. They'd break the ice and the icebreakers would come and break ice all the way up to that station. Then they would make their own pier and stuff like it. So the boat would go up they have to make a pier basically, and they would offload all the supplies, all the way from toilet paper to post-it notes and stuff like that, and food as well. And then they take on board all the trash and dunnage and everything else. That's how they do that. Anyway, that she was on that ship, and we had a little happy reunion. That was a lot of fun. I mean, we used to start laughing, but we always say, "Hey, how many squad dances you been to?" So long. Or anyway, but um, another time, the strangest places where you meet natives. It was in Saudi Arabia. It was in Bahrain. The locals call it Bahrain. Anyway, we have a base there, and then they were shopping and said, "Man, that's got to be native." I said, "Where are you from?" And he says, "From Arizona." That's the way he says. We both looking at each other. Anyway, so I get to meet natives there. But as far as members in the church, I didn't meet him. But as far as church goes, we always on board the ship. We always have meetings for Latter-day Saints or lay readers. Lay readers. The first ship that I was on, there's only like 3 of us that are active. We still have a church meeting, and we had it in the ship's library, a triage, a little office. That was some of the most beautiful moments that I've had when taking the sacrament. And the office was the triage, the beds and everything else. And anyway, but mostly it was in the ship's library. We had that, and the other times we were as I got on bigger ships, like on aircraft carriers, we met in the ship's chapel. We had like at least 10, 12 members there would come together, and they would come from squadrons, and and the ship's company, the ones that were attached to the ship, and then the squadrons, like people that get on there, and they would we would meet on there. So, and I never met many other natives. I'm the only one that usually shows up, and then but it's just good to be among the Latter Day Saints. We share the same common faith, and that's just wonderful. There were some good moments, and I just appreciated that, and I'm sure they felt the same way because we, the other times is I think Brother Dunn, Paul H. Dunn, used to say there's no atheists in the foxhole, and I got to see that, and during the first time in the Gulf War. It used to be, like I said, there was only on the ship's company, there's only like 5 or 6 come out. And then as we got deployed to go on the Desert Shield at the time and Desert Storm, and our numbers increased to 10 and 12. And then as we drew closer to the Gulf, the numbers increased to 25. Man, it was 20, 25 guys. And it's just like, you got to be kidding me. There been members on here, and anyway. But then, oddly enough, when it was all the Desert Storm, everything was over. As we were coming back, our membership declined back to the original, the 12. There was always, it seems like the need was the need of the Lord when we're in harm's way. But as we go away, and Brother Dunn used to, he in his talks, he used to say, when he went on patrols, he knew he always come back, and they always say, "Hey, Dunn, don't forget about me. I want to be in your squad." But then when you get back to the beach, hey, whatever, who's this guy that you talk about, Smith or something like that, and anyway, but it's funny how human nature is about when you get in that time of in harm's way, and when they remember the Lord, and it's just heartwarming. And one of the other thing that the ship that I was on had like 2,000 members, and I remember that the same number with the 2,000 stripling warriors. And I used to sit there, and I worked in the hangar bay at the time, and I said, how would it be if all these guys were members of the church? And our CEO was, Helaman, and how would that be? I just, it's just that thought goes through your mind. If you had 2,000 the young man, it's just, it could be. It's just a thought-provoking moment for me, and it's just a moment that I'll never forget. And then what I cherish the most is when those young men came out, just when we were getting into the Gulf War, when we went into harm's way. It's we all knelt together and cried together as we're. I especially cried for I remember the day when the air assault began. The helos were, it seemed like everything shut off. Only motions just in motion, and that's the helos were turning. The crew chiefs were standing out, and the rotors were turning, and then there's a light on the island. It was turning yellow. It means prepare, and it turned green. Crew chiefs walk, and then got inside the aircraft, and the landing signal officers, waved them to get them off the ship. And then as the helos were leaving, and then I just felt a tear running down my face because we don't know what was going to happen. But then our joy was even immense when they came home, and very much the same feeling I got. This is how he must have felt when he. So it's all accounted for. Only the ones that lost the faint of blood, and that was it. He says, "How's that be?" And that also turns into mothers. How do they know that their mothers taught them? And that's another whole new meaning for me, mothers. And like I said, I used to herd sheep, and springtime was my favorite one because there's the little goats and lambs and everything. And I remember we used to separate them because, and they used to really break my heart. We used to separate them, but we knew them because they couldn't keep up, their little legs couldn't keep up with mom. So we have to keep them there. And one of us would stay behind and feed him and water him and stuff like that. And us being young, you have to play with the little guys too. And, you know, nibbling on our clothes and sucking on our earlobes and stuff like that. And I used to get a good kick out of that one. And the happiest part was when the mothers are coming back, grazing all day, and they're coming home. And some of them are coming, and the mothers would meet up with their little, the lambs and meet up with their mothers and everything. That's kind of a joyous moment, and very much like coming off a deployment and wives and mothers meeting up with their loved ones, and it's just a happy moment, and that's just you just can't help but sometimes shed a tear, especially the little ones that come running up to their fathers or mothers, and it used to always pain me when some of the little lambs would be wandering around, calling out their moms, and then they're just doing it, and this is the one that we have to hold the mothers so the little ones could nurse and feed them and everything. And they used to really hurt me. It just really, it just seems parallel to in this day and age when some mothers don't want their little ones, and we have to hold these mothers so they can feed their little ones. And they used to just really, and they didn't want them for one reason or another, and I used to think, man, how strange! It's not any further from the truth from the human side. But then we had this kind of like an old maid. I don't want to say an old maid, but we had this one. She had with this one goat we had she had twins, and she would feed the rest of them. Anyone that came along, she would feed them. And she was and that was my favorite one because she would feed anyone that came along. That was, of course, paying a little attention. Used to give her that extra hay on the side, for like showing compassion. And that's just anyway. My sweetheart's primary president now. And one time we went out of town a couple of weeks ago for a funeral, and she wasn't there. And this one little girl comes up and says, "Sister Brown, I didn't see you. Where were you? I didn't know where you were." Kind of reminded me of that little lamb running up to its mother and searching for her. And that's it brought all those memories back in herding sheep, and how much the Savior's like that with us to the Lord when we return back to Him. And think about how our Heavenly Father feels when we return. I'm sure He sheds a few tears for our return, and or humbling ourselves, and or changing, making corrections in our life. And then I remember when my daughter, my son's wife, and then they have 5 kids, and the youngest one, so I remember she was frazzled by the end of the day. And then my grandson's name's his I guess you call it, his call sign's Poe. His full name is Samuel Porter Claw Brown, but his family calls him Poe. And she said, "Oh, Poe, all's forgiven. He could be doing. He may break 1,000 cups or whatever." And this is at the end of the day. She says, "All's forgiven." Just the way she said it just warmed my heart. That how wonderful mothers are, and that we learn a lot from our mothers. Not only that, but even in the military, it exists. When Colonel Hal Moore was teaching his young officers, and he told them a lesson that says, the Sioux, they teach all their children, they nurse from all the women there, and then they were supposed to call them mothers, all of them, and the men, the older men, they call them grandpa. No matter what, they call them grandpa. It's the point he was making is that we're here to take care of each other. This is because when this thing starts up, this is all we have is each other. So you learn how to take care of your people. That was the lesson that he was driving home on that. And I remember my mother's counseling. There's a scripture come to mind particularly. This is the soft words turn away the wrath. What I mean by that is when all the times that my mother yelled at me, we just right from her toenails all to the top of her head on me, just bring my ears on. And this is, I don't remember. All I know is I went to, like I said in Star Trek, shields up, went up, and then of course I had one other young. One of my cousin's husbands says, "Yeah, you yell at me, it's going to go in one ear and out the other." Your mom doesn't like to hear that. But this particular verse became, it says, the soft words turn away the wrath. And the ones that I remember the most is when my mother spoke soft, with a patient, kind, and loving voice. And when I remember this, I could still remember the day when she said, "Gosh, don't you think that he could? A jour not so little, and you do what it a jour she gosh." I said, "Son, don't do that." She said, "Make sure to take care of yourself and just don't do that." I remember those words. My father was the same way. He never said, I remember I ran away from school and went totally the opposite direction. I mean, when the dust settled and finally my dad got me home, and then he looked at me and says, "Son, why are you running that way? Your home is right here. Just don't run away. If you're going to run away, run over here." And I still remember as if he was, I remember the 55-gallon drum that's cut in half. The fire was, at the sheep ranch, and the stove, and I heard the fires crackling, the flames looking up, and see the shadows coming from it. And my father just sit there patiently and sipping on some Chillicothe tea. And then he looked at him and says, "Why are you running away that way, son? Your home's right here." I still remember that. Inside the whole gun was nice and warm. And man, I remember as I was running away, when I ran away, we spent the night on somebody's house, and I'm just laying there like, I was just really upset at myself for what I did. And, I ran away from a boarding school my last year there. And of course that following year I went on a placement program. And so that's how that ended up with that, that life of the teachings of my mom and my father. It still rings true with me today when they spoke those soft words. And I try to put that to practice, with my own children. And when they have a hard time, and I remember all the times I raised my voice, I know the shields went up. But if I calm down and speak to them patiently and lovingly, as the scripture says, with perseverance, and you never know when they may come around. And that's true.
Do you want to talk about your church calling right now, or do you want to talk about something that one of your children would be like, "Why didn't you tell us that story?"
I don't know. I'm sure I'll hear about that soon. And the calling that I have right now currently is I'm a second counselor in Elders Quorum, and in a place where Marine Corps Recruit Depot, there's a branch down there, and I got called over to be the second counselor in the Elders Quorum. And there, I see the young recruits come in, and see if I could paint you a picture. We see a range of recruits that's just raw recruit. They came in that Monday. Here's a Sunday, and that they came in on Monday. That whole week, the whole world's been turned upside down. Somebody yelling at them, this, doing that. The whole shooting. And then Sundays kind of like a day off. And the drill instructors drop them off. This is a Marine recruit depot, and their world's just turned upside down. I know they're thinking about home, coughing, sick, because they're um, you know wondering what happened to their world. Anyway, uh, when the first that calling again, I met a native there too. I went down there and I had my turquoise bolo tie on there, and then that was my first day out there. And just right as that when the meeting ended, one of them came out. I said, "Excuse me, where are you?" He said, "Excuse me, are you native?" He says, "Yes, I am." And then again, I heard the Navajo voice in there, and then Squeegee went, and then the Navajo mo and said, "Hade lana." He just we kind of looked at each other. He's come to find out he's from Fruitland, and he goes, "Oh yeah," and then just exchange. He was just so happy because to see another native there, it just rang true with him. I guess it needed some sort of comfort, sustain him, I guess, and later on I come to find out he was related to me. He was my chiche. And I found out that what he was, and then from the day when he graduated, when they graduate, there's 2 days. There's family day, and then there's a graduation. Family day is when I saw him, and that's when I said, when I extended my arm, he was, "Yeah, yeah, this is my." he he had a big old huge grin on his face because to be addressed at that, it's just to whether you're Navajo, some relationship, when you say that, it means a whole lot to them. Or especially if you see an elder lady and call them Shema, they really like it. I know my mom was, because I had one white elder from Utah that I guess he got pretty close to my mom, or she would call my mom Shema, and my mom was tickled pink when she called him back, and then she was, "Oh yeah, there she is." She used to tell him that, "Yes, my son." She has just me. And I used to get a kick out of mom calling him that, but and mom may appreciate him being called mom by another. Again, like that mother goat would accept another stray refused um, a lamb that his mother didn't want him. It just ring along keeps true with that, and that's just and anyway, it means a lot when you're addressing another Navajo, and especially when you find out what their kinship and relationship goes, and it goes at, and that's why every time I see them, they always ask them that. And, there's some relations that are there, but this calling I have is the most humbling calling that I've have. The first I still do. I shed a tear every time when I see myself, my three boys, actually my son and my two son-in-laws, but I call them my boys. I would see their faces, and their struggles, and their I just see them, and then all of them. My first son-in-law, he was in the Navy too, and I landed on his the ship that he was on, USS Constellation. We used to land on that all the time. All the ships are on the West Coast. When I was in the C2 communities, we hit all those aircraft carriers, um, um, passenger, cargo, or mail. Mail is, oh my goodness, yeah, mail is like gold. Just um, that's a funny thing about mail. That's another thing too. And here in Southern Cal, it doesn't really doesn't mean a lot. One time I was deployed to Etsugi, Japan. We hit the USS uh, Independence was out there, and all the time when we fly here in Southern Cal, they just put up what we call a rate. They put us in a stack. every 1,000 feet there's some airplanes. They put them in the racetrack. All they do is just run the racetrack up there until they tell them to come down, and you can land. Sometimes I remember we've been loitering around for about an hour trying to land because the new pilots getting their carrier calls, and that's what's happening. But when we're deployed, the whole thing changes. Anyway, when I was in Etsugi, Japan, we flew out to Independence, and the guy that was flying says, "Norm, you be ready because when they come, they'll clear a way for us." And I didn't believe until we got to the ship, and then this is on our headsets we listen to all the conversations that's going on, and then we tell them, "Yeah, we have 1,000 pounds of cargo and 3,000 ponies." That's Pony Express for mail. So 3,000 ponies, and we have 6 passengers or 6 packs, as we say, or passengers, and the number of packs, and that's it. And this is just without even missing a beat. Says, "Yeah, Romeo 2-1, you're cleared right in." And I never heard that before. Meaning, the carriers are the fighters are all going around, and so they just shoo them away. Just get out of the way. The C2's coming in because he's bringing mail. That's the whole deal. They'd clear away, and we just made a straight in approach. We didn't make a carrier break. Usually, when we come to the carrier, we go fly over on the left hand side, and then we make a steep 90-degree, 45-degree turn all the way around and come back until they aft in, and then we land. This time they didn't. You just go what they call a straight approach. There's no breaking away or anything. That you just go straight in. And I've never seen guys so happy. And then we never had so much help. And when we landed, everybody wanted to help offload the mail. Anyway, so that was the deal of, I think, getting off track here. Then you go back into being, as I see my son-in-law, he worked up on the flight deck, and these guys are firefighters, if you will. They wear the silver suit. We call them the silver bullet because the whole thing is proximity suit they're wearing. That's what he did on the flight deck. And my second son-in-law was in Marines, so I was I see how those guys operate, and I think a lot about them. And then my son's in special operations community, spec ops community is what they call it. He's a medical specialist, and he's a very valuable man on his team because he has not only have to carry his gear, but all the medical gear that he has, and plus watching everybody in there, how they perform, are they lacking, are they stumbling, or all the way from blisters on their feet. You have to take care of them and everything. That they value my son in that end, and he went on a mission too. Went to Germany on this mission, and when he enlisted as a National Guard, he spoke German. Went on his mission to Frankfurt, Germany, and then learned how to speak German. And then when he got picked up from the National Guard, they immediately sent him off to have him learn Arabic. So he knows German and Arabic. And then when he deployed down to Africa and Burkina Faso, he didn't get to use very much of his, he used some of his Arabic, but they spoke French down there. And one time there was an Austrian special forces down there, they're obviously Germans, and they got blown away when he spoke German. Oh my goodness. Of course, cross chain, they just like Jared, that he could speak their language, and that's one thing I found out being these foreign countries. If you spoke a few here and there, and they love it because you took the time to learn, and that I remember after the storm was over, and I learned a few lines in Arabic, and then this guy just welcomed me into his house and have tea with him, and then just the way he did that, a few lines that slipped my mind, but just to say that, and they just really like that when you do that, and they really appreciate it, as well as the elders learning how to speak Navajo. in the case of my mom, yeah, this elder calling my mom Shema, and it just tickle my mom pink, and anyway, and then in turn call him Shiaj. Anyway, so that's um, at that end. I what I've learned so far is it's the common bond again back to mothers. If you hear a child cry, whether it be in Japan or Saudi Arabia, first person to get that gets picked up is my mom. It just really holds true for me. The same thing with my sweetheart. We've been together now for 43 years, and it used to be really hard. I didn't know that was well at the time. It was like 8 years when I first got asked aboard the ship. We said, "How long you been married?" And I said, "Well, I've been 8 years." And they used to be shocked, 8 years, and then they used to say to the same woman, "Yeah, they're the same woman. What do you think?" Little I found out that some of these guys have been around that tree stump more than once. Some of my fellow shipmates have been married, maybe been married more than once, but it's a few of them say it's a rarity if you ever find the ones that have been married a long time. And, it's just wonderful to have a sweetheart that I have mine that's put up with me all those 43 years. So, and I can't say enough about her, and especially in her primary calling, she loves that calling. I hope they never take that away from her. She's said that more than once, so she really enjoys those little ones. Anyway,
What does it mean to you to know that you belong to the tribe of Israel?
well, the tribe of Israel. It's I've heard it over the responsibility of where we're from. At least I know where in the beginning is where I really, really come from. The 12 tribes from definite line from Joseph, and then the Manasseh, and it says it in my patriarchal blessing too. It holds dear to me, and I remember when we get these. And I really sometimes I always wonder how did I ever get blessed to be in this such a in such a tribe in the tribe from Manasseh, and on the jewels that was sold into Egypt. That's my line, and the only thing that really rang true for me was after the Gulf War was over, and I was in Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, in Saudi Arabia, we doctored and in there, and then I remember I was drawing. I do sketches and everything, and then these Arabs were all posing for me because I'm doing sketches of them, and during that time they were. It was Ramadan, they fast for 30 days, and they have when they break the fast, and boy, all the food breaks out. Anyway, when they broke it out, and then there was that time to eating time, and you can't kick your feet up like so to show the sole of your shoes and stuff like that. And but this one I was just sitting cross-legged and sketching, and they invited me to have dinner with them, and it was just the whole men, and they did roll out a tablecloth. It's one of you see, oh shoot, those rubber backing, you'd see them on those eatery places, in powwows and stuff like that. Squad dances, the table. That's the one I remember that looked like. And then right in the middle, they have dates, oranges, apples, some sort of a meat that's in the ball with bread in it, and that's all strung around about like a foot across, all the way to the length of this 2 tablecloth legs. It's all on the ground too. And I remember saying, "Come on, eat, eat with us." So I remember eating, and I was the only one wearing yet Western clothing, and everybody else is not wearing any no Western clothing at all because they were in they're wearing their shemag and their long garb and anything, and they're eating, and then we were just then it occurred to me, I just looked up, I'm the only American here. And then that thought, this is where Lehi came from. And I really understood that, where, again, the 12 tribes of Israel. And I've been to all the tribes that there are, whether it be in the Philippines or New Zealand or Australia and Hong Kong and Japan and Okinawa and Guam, Pongo and Chile and Peru, Ecuador, Brazil, and all those places where all Israel. I've been there places in their meetings, and I've been in their temples too. It's a wonderful feeling. I've been to all those temples in Hong Kong and well, when we passed to go to Hawaii, the temple in Laie, and went to the one in Peru, and I couldn't get to the one in Chile because it was in Valparaiso. And anyway, in Brazil, I never had the chance to go to one in Brazil, but I really wanted to. But anyway, it just being all the tribes that came from there, I've been amongst them, if you will, instead of being one. Makes me appreciate at the same time. And another thing I wanted to share with you, what the calling that I have and ranged true. And my mother told me when I was growing up or younger, she told me this, this is your name, is Hashkeneni. Hashke means either angry, but Navajo was also a warrior. And Nene is the one who hands out. And when I was going, I said, Hashke is, oh man, what am I angry about? How does that work? And then it's not too long ago, finally, I found out that was during when the Navajos were being moved to Fort Sumner, and there was a famous warrior that stayed behind. He never went, and that warrior, the famous warrior's name was Ashkeneni, the warrior who hands out. So when the Navajos came back from Fort Sumner, and they saw the destitute, or the people coming back didn't have nothing at all, so he gave them sheep, cattle here, lamb, whatever he had, he handed them out to them. And I was thinking, how did I come wind up with that name? Anyway, but now I hold true to that. I try to live up to that name, Hashkeneni. And it occurred to me I did live up to that name because I participated in Operation Sea Angel when the Bangladesh tsunami hit. We would give aid to them. And then I was in a relief called Beniachi, the tsunami. I was in that relief, in relief effort. And all the places that I went to, when they asked for volunteers to help out with the community. And then with my own calling, a home teaching, if you will, is that try to remember what days that the people I minister to, give them a loaf of bread or someone make a bread and then hand them out to them. And now in this calling that I have among the new recruits, to give them hope. And I was given the opportunity to, we gave them these challenge coins, and challenge coins is, I don't know if you can see this or not, but anyway, there we go. It's called putting on the armor, putting on the armor of God. Pray always. On the other side, it says the helmet of the helmet and the shield and the sword and the feet and the loins and the breastplates. We hand these out to the new recruits, and it's called a challenge coin. That and I was given the opportunity to hand these out, and I just told them that Do you remember the 2000 stripping wars about the mothers? This is, I want to challenge you. I told them I was honored to be among them. And I want them to remember is when they go, wherever they are, to write to their mothers every week, no matter what it is, even if it's on a cut off a box of MREs and put a stamp on it, say, "Mom, I'm alive and I'm thinking about you." Just write a letter. Says, "Mom loves postcards." I did it with all the times that I was deployed. I would send postcards home to my children, and I only had one granddaughter at a time. She has a whole bunch of them, and she collected them and had a little plastic bag. She still has it to this day, and she says, "Hey," the one time she visits, "Hey, I got something to show you, Grandpa." She said, "Che, I got something to show you." On this stack of postcards that I gave her when when she was just little, and she still has them. And of course, I did send it to all my children, and postcard says a lot. Well, the old Chinese saying, it says 1,000 words. A picture says 1,000 words. And the letters can only so much, but I still send letters, but they prefer postcards if anything. So FYI, all you young men out there or young women, postcards to mom, because mom loves getting postcards from their children.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
You're just so great, and I'm so glad that we could have this time together. Thank you.
You're welcome, Sister H.
So I just came back from the gathering of tribes in Arizona, and it was wonderful. So there were a lot of people that signed up who didn't come, and I am really bummed about that. I was looking forward to meeting so many other people. I had an awesome time meeting so many of you. It was so fun to give hugs and to just I just loved it. It was so special, and I just was happy to share the message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It was so great. It was wonderful. And I hung out with my friend Rachel. I hosted me while I was there, and we laughed, and we were like a team meeting people. It was super way fun. There were wonderful talks and wonderful testimonies born, and it's nice to honor our elders, and it was great to be able to present about testimony, and I am just so grateful for all the organizers of that. I am actually particularly grateful to the Mesa Steak and anybody else who helped host us. Because let me tell you, brothers and sisters, this steak that hosted us, they had volunteers the whole time we were there. They had volunteers before we came. They had volunteers doing meals for us. They had volunteers packing meals for us. They had volunteers handing out treats and setting up chairs and tables. They had volunteers greeting us at the doors. They had volunteers the whole time, and it seemed like every time I turned around there were new faces. And I felt so grateful for all these wonderful men and women and even youth who came to help us and to serve us. They really made it special. I'm so grateful for them. And I've told you all again and again, and now I realize that my mission is to make sure that you know that I know Heavenly Father loves me, and if He loves me, He loves you. And people show that love and serve and are His hands. And I'm so grateful for that. And I hope you're having a super wonderful, awesome day. Tribe of Testimonies is not sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The music is a traditional hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, arranged and performed by Kyle Forsyth. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear how this podcast is affecting you. And I'm always looking for guests. If you or someone you know would be a great guest, you can reach me at tribeoftestimonies@gmail.com.